Chapter 1. The Gilded Cage. Sunlight, filtered through heavy silk drapes, dappled the vast mahogany bed. Nicole lay stiffly beneath the expensive linens, the morning symphony of the city muted by the opulent distance. Beside her, Chris slept soundly, a faint curl of a satisfied smile playing on his lips. He looked perfect, the embodiment of the successful young lawyer he was. Nicole rose, the silk sheets sighing around her. The air in the grand bedroom was already thick with an expectation of flawless beauty. A maid, efficient and silent, would arrive soon to help her dress, another cog in the meticulously oiled machinery of their lives. She moved to the enormous window, the city sprawling beneath a sky the color of faded opals. It was a breathtaking view, the kind that belonged in magazines. But this morning, it offered no solace. The past 10 years had unfolded like a dream, a whirlwind of lavish parties, expensive clothes, and whispers of envy. Chris, with his charming smile and ruthless ambition, had swept her off her feet. He'd promised her the world, and for a while, it felt like he'd delivered. There were glimmers of affection in the beginning, stolen glances, and lingering touches, but those faded as quickly as the morning dew. Chris, Nicole soon realized, thrived on admiration, and she was merely the most exquisite jewel in his carefully curated collection. The arrival of Joseph, their son, had brought a flicker of warmth back into their lives. Nicole poured her heart into her little boy, finding solace in his innocent affection. But even Joseph's arrival couldn't dispel the chill that had settled over their marriage. Chris's gaze rarely lingered on her anymore. His attention, when it strayed from work, was on other, younger women. They were trophies, fleeting glimpses of something he seemed to believe Nicole no longer possessed. The loneliness became a constant companion, a dull ache that resided deep in her bones. Yet, she played the part of the perfect wife, the hostess with the effortless smile. It was all a facade, a gilded cage she felt increasingly trapped within. The clink of china announced the arrival of the breakfast cart. Rich smells filled the air, a stark contrast to the emptiness Nicole felt inside. Today, however, something was different. A strange resolve flickered in her eyes as she looked at her reflection in the mirrored doors of the wardrobe. The gilded cage, once a symbol of a life she dreamed of, now seemed suffocating. Today, she would crack the gilded bars and see if she could find her way back to herself. Chapter 2. The shimmer fades. Weeks bled into months, the facade of their marriage a fragile thing, cracking ever so slightly. The subtle changes in Nicole were not lost on Chris. Gone was the effortless enthusiasm with which she tackled social gatherings. Her smile, once bright and genuine, now flickered uncertainly. He noticed the way she lingered over Joseph a little longer, the fierceness in her eyes when another woman at a party gave him a little too much attention. It was a possessiveness he hadn't seen before, a subtle shift in the power dynamic that unsettled him. Chris, accustomed to admiration, felt a flicker of something akin to jealousy. He tried to win her back, showering her with expensive gifts and whispered promises. But the spark was gone, replaced by a guarded politeness that chilled him to the bone. One evening, as they sat across from each other in the cavernous dining room, the silence stretched, heavy and oppressive. Chris, used to holding court at the dinner table, felt a strange vulnerability. The staff, sensing the tension, moved with an even more subdued efficiency.
Nicole,
He began, the word catching in his throat. He cleared it and tried again.
we haven't been ourselves lately. Maybe a weekend getaway would be good for us.
His voice held a question, a plea for the return of the woman who once hung onto his every word. Nicole looked up, her gaze steady and devoid of the adoration that used to reside there.
There's no us anymore, Chris.
She said, her voice quiet but firm. He flinched, the word us hanging heavy in the air. It was a truth he hadn't allowed himself to acknowledge, a truth that threatened the meticulously constructed image of his perfect life.
What do you mean?
He asked, a tremor in his voice betraying his carefully constructed composure.
I can't do this anymore.
She replied, gesturing vaguely at the luxurious surroundings.
This life, this marriage, it's suffocating me.
The words hung in the air, a declaration of war in the sterile silence of the room. Chris stared at her, a flicker of something resembling fear crossing his face. The power dynamic had shifted decisively. He tried to argue, to cajole, to remind her of the life he'd provided. But Nicole was resolute. The shimmer of the gilded cage had faded, replaced by the stark reality of the life she'd been leading. The rest of the evening passed in a daze. The untouched food remained on the table, a silent testament to the shattered facade of their marriage. In the following days, lawyers were consulted, the vast house filled with the hushed murmur of negotiations. Joseph, too young to understand the weight of the situation, flitted between his parents, a bewildered expression on his face. Nicole held him close, the fierce protectiveness in her eyes a constant reminder of what she wouldn't give up. Finally, the dust settled. The divorce was finalized, a clean break that left Chris fuming and Nicole with a raw ache in her heart. But amidst the pain, there was a strange sense of liberation. The cage door had creaked open, and she was taking her first tentative steps toward freedom. Chapter 3. A fractured reflection. The opulent apartment, once a symbol of her success, felt strangely empty. Gone were the uniformed staff, the constant buzz of activity. The silence roared in Nicole's ears, a stark contrast to the life she'd known. Joseph, usually full of boundless energy, wandered the halls with a subdued air. The upheaval had unsettled him, the constant presence of his father replaced by a gaping hole. Nicole ached for him, for the innocence stolen by the events of the past few weeks. Her reflection in the hallway mirror startled her. The woman staring back had shadows under her eyes, the carefree joy she once possessed replaced by a weary determination. The past year had taken its toll, the stress of the divorce leaving its mark. But there was something else in her eyes, a spark of defiance that hadn't been there before. This wasn't a woman defeated, it was a woman reborn. The reality of her situation was daunting. The luxurious lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to was gone. The generous settlement would provide for them, but it wouldn't stretch forever. She needed to find a job, something she hadn't done since marrying Chris. The thought of entering the workforce after a 10-year hiatus was terrifying. The skills she used to possess seemed rusty, the professional world an unknown territory. Yet, the fear was overshadowed by a fierce determination. She wouldn't let Chris, or anyone else, dictate her future. Days turned into weeks. Nicole scoured the classifieds and job boards, the sting of rejection letters a constant reminder of the challenges ahead. Eventually, she landed a secretarial position at a small publishing house. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. The first day back in an office was a whirlwind of unfamiliar faces and procedures. Her fingers fumbled with the typewriter, the clacking keys a harsh counterpoint to the hushed whispers of the office. Yet, a strange sense of pride swelled within her. This was hers, a small victory in the ongoing battle for independence. At home, the evenings were a blur of shared meals with Joseph, bedtime stories read with a lump in her throat, and the quiet hum of the television. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. The fractured reflection in the mirror now held a hint of a smile, a testament to the strength she was discovering within herself. Chapter 4. The Silent House. The silence of the small apartment was a constant companion. No longer did the house hum with the constant presence of staff, the clatter of dishes, or the murmur of polite conversation. It was a stark contrast to the life Nicole had known, a life that now felt like a distant dream. Joseph, initially subdued by the upheaval, seemed to be adjusting. He thrived on the routine Nicole had established, the shared meals and bedtime stories a source of comfort for them both. But the silence held a deeper meaning. Gone were the heated arguments with Chris, the icy silences that had become a hallmark of their marriage. The absence was both unsettling and strangely peaceful. There were moments, however, when the silence felt deafening. Evenings spent hunched over the kitchen table, balancing her meager budget, brought a wave of loneliness. Nights spent reading under the dim glow of a lamp felt empty, an echo of the life she once had. One blustery evening, as the wind howled outside, a wave of nostalgia washed over her. Memories from a simpler time surfaced, a time before Chris in the gilded cage. Images of laughter with friends, of carefree weekends spent exploring the city, and of dreams that stretched beyond the confines of a luxurious marriage. Those dreams, dormant for years, flickered back to life. The silence, once a symbol of her loneliness, became a canvas on which she could paint her future. With renewed determination, Nicole resurrected an old dream box, a dented metal container filled with faded photographs and handwritten goals. Inside, nestled amongst forgotten aspirations, she found a dusty writing journal. That night, under the soft glow of the lamp, she began to write. The words, hesitant at first, flowed onto the yellowed pages. Memories and aspirations intertwined, a roadmap for a life she could reclaim. The silence in the apartment no longer felt heavy. It was now filled with the quiet murmur of her pen, a symphony of the future being written, one word at a time. The house, once a symbol of a broken marriage, was slowly transforming into a sanctuary, a haven of self-discovery and quiet strength. Chapter 5. Joseph's Whispers. Months blurred into a year, the rhythm of Nicole's life settling into a comfortable routine. The days were a whirlwind of work, errands, and stolen moments with Joseph. The evenings, once filled with an aching loneliness, were now a haven for shared stories, laughter echoing in the small apartment. Joseph, initially withdrawn, blossomed under Nicole's watchful gaze. His once dulled eyes sparkled with curiosity as she read him bedtime stories, his tiny hand clutching hers for comfort. In his innocent whispers, Nicole found a source of unexpected strength. One evening, as they snuggled beneath a worn blanket, Joseph, his voice barely a whisper, asked,
"Why isn't Dad here anymore?"
Nicole's heart ached. The question, inevitable, had arrived sooner than she'd anticipated. She gathered him close, her voice soothing as she explained, in simple terms, the concept of divorce. Joseph listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. When she finished, he remained silent for a moment, then whispered,
"Will Dad ever come back?"
The question hung in the air, a silent plea for a future that wasn't meant to be. Nicole hugged him tighter, the lump in her throat making it difficult to speak.
No, sweetheart.
She finally managed, her voice thick with emotion.
But you'll always have a daddy, even if he doesn't live with us anymore.
Joseph seemed to accept the answer, his small hand tracing comforting circles on her back. But in his large, questioning eyes, Nicole saw a flicker of something akin to loss, a shadow of the life that could have been. The incident served as a stark reminder of the fragile world she was building for them. Chris, though absent, remained a constant shadow, a ghost in their new life. Yet, amidst the challenges, there was a sense of quiet joy. Joseph's laughter, once hesitant, now filled the apartment with a melody of innocence. In his growing independence, Nicole saw a reflection of her own strength, a testament to the life they were building together. The silence in the house, once a symbol of loneliness, now held a different meaning. It was the quiet hum of a life rebuilt, a testament to the fierce love that bound them together. Chapter 6. The Unraveling. The carefully constructed world Nicole had built began to unravel with a single, unexpected phone call. It was a crisp autumn morning, the first hints of gold painting the edges of the trees. Joseph, backpack slung over his shoulder, was chattering excitedly about his day at school. The phone's shrill ring shattered the peaceful routine. Nicole answered with a hesitant hello, a knot of apprehension tightening in her stomach. It was Chris, his voice clipped and unfamiliar. He spoke of Joseph, his tone laced with a strange urgency. Apparently, there had been an incident at school, a fight with another child. Chris, his voice devoid of warmth, demanded a meeting to discuss Joseph's discipline. Nicole's anger flared. In the year since the divorce, Chris had barely been a presence in their lives. Now, his sudden interest felt like an intrusion, a disruption to the fragile peace they had built. Days later, they met at a small cafe, a tense truce hanging in the air. Chris, looking slightly rumpled, launched into a tirade about Joseph's behavior. Nicole listened, her jaw clenched, the years of suppressed anger bubbling to the surface. When he finished, she spoke, her voice quiet but firm.
Joseph is a good boy, Chris.
She said.
He's adjusting. We both are.
Her words hung in the air, a challenge and a plea. Chris seemed taken aback by her composure.
He's adjusting. We both are.
He scoffed, a hint of his old arrogance returning.
He needs his father.
Nicole's gaze met his, unwavering.
He has a father.
She said, the words heavy with meaning.
He just doesn't have a perfect one.
The rest of the meeting was a blur of accusations and counter-accusations. The carefully constructed facade of civility crumbled, revealing the raw wounds beneath. As Nicole stormed out, a chilling realization settled in her heart. The past wasn't truly buried. It had a way of resurfacing, disrupting the present and casting a long shadow on the future. The fight with Chris served as a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. But amidst the turmoil, a fierce resolve flickered in Nicole's eyes. She wouldn't let Chris, or anyone else, unravel the life she had painstakingly built for her and Joseph. Chapter 7. The dreaded decision. Weeks bled into months, the tension from Chris's unexpected intrusion lingering in the air. Joseph, initially confused by the meeting, seemed to sense the unspoken conflict. His once carefree chatter was replaced by a watchful silence, a reflection of the uncertainty that clouded Nicole's own heart. The incident forced Nicole to confront a truth she'd been avoiding. Co-parenting with Chris, a man who seemed more interested in asserting his dominance than in Joseph's well-being, wouldn't be easy. It was a constant tightrope walk, a delicate balance between protecting her son and allowing him a relationship with his father. Sleepless nights were spent wrestling with the dreaded decision. Should she seek legal counsel to establish clear boundaries for Chris's involvement in Joseph's life? The thought of another legal battle filled her with dread, a reminder of the emotional and financial toll of the divorce. But the alternative, leaving Joseph vulnerable to Chris's unpredictable behavior, was unthinkable. Nicole wouldn't let her son become another casualty in the wreckage of their failed marriage. One afternoon, while sorting through old files, she stumbled upon a worn address book. A forgotten name caught her eye. Sarah, a friend from college, a lawyer known for her compassion and fierce advocacy for mothers. A spark of hope flickered in Nicole's chest. Maybe there was a way to navigate this minefield without another grueling court battle. Maybe Sarah could offer guidance, a map through the legal labyrinth that lay ahead. With a deep breath, Nicole dialed the number. The familiar voice on the other end brought a wave of relief. As she explained the situation, a flicker of determination replaced the worry lines etched on her face. This wasn't about revenge or rehashing old wounds. This was about protecting Joseph, about building a future where their fragile peace wouldn't be constantly threatened. She wouldn't let Chris control their lives anymore. It was time to take back the narrative, to write a new chapter in their story, one where Joseph's well-being was at the heart of it all. Chapter 8. The Empty Nest. Years, like fallen leaves, swirled in a whirlwind of activity. Joseph, once a small boy clinging to her hand, blossomed into a confident young man. The apartment, once a haven for two, felt strangely spacious as he prepared to leave for college. Packing boxes piled high cast long shadows in the living room. Nicole, surrounded by memories packed into cardboard containers, fought back a wave of bittersweet emotions. There were countless photos, Joseph's first steps, his gap-toothed grin on graduation day, the two of them at the beach, faces wind-blown and carefree. Each image held a memory, a fragment of their shared journey. Joseph, oblivious to the storm brewing within her, hummed a cheerful tune as he sorted through his belongings. His excitement for the future was infectious, yet it highlighted the impending emptiness that loomed ahead. The past few years had been a blur of school plays, science fairs, and late-night conversations about life and dreams. Joseph had become her confidant, her anchor in a world that still held the faint echoes of past turmoil. Now, he was ready to embark on his own adventure. The thought filled her with a mix of pride and a deep, gnawing loneliness. The small apartment, once a symbol of independence, now felt strangely empty. She wandered through the quiet rooms, the silence broken only by the tick-tock of the grandfather clock. The space, once filled with laughter and homework sprawled across the dining table, now echoed with the absence. The ache in her chest wasn't entirely unexpected. She had known this day would come, the inevitable parting that marked the transition from mother to a woman rediscovering herself. But as she stood by the window, watching Joseph load his belongings into the car, a new realization dawned. The space wasn't just empty, it was a canvas waiting to be filled. The life she had built with Joseph, filled with love and resilience, had shaped her into a woman she barely recognized. A woman stronger, more confident, and ready to embrace the possibilities that stretched before her. This wasn't the end of a story, it was a new chapter waiting to be written. The future, once a daunting unknown, now held the promise of a life rediscovered, a life filled with her own dreams and aspirations. Chapter 9. Uncertain Wings. The days that followed Joseph's departure were painted in shades of quiet solitude. The apartment, once echoing with laughter and homework sprawled across the table, felt cavernous. Yet, there was a strange sense of liberation in the silence. Nicole, with a newfound lightness in her step, tackled neglected tasks. She finally tackled the overflowing bookshelf, meticulously organizing a lifetime of stories. Forgotten hobbies, pushed aside during the whirlwind of motherhood, beckoned with a renewed allure. One afternoon, while sorting through a box of old art supplies, she rediscovered a dusty sketchbook. The worn pages, filled with youthful dreams of becoming a graphic designer, brought a smile to her lips. The spark that had ignited those dreams, long dormant under the weight of responsibility, flickered back to life. Maybe, she thought, it wasn't too late. Maybe, amidst the newfound freedom, she could revisit those dreams, nurture them back into existence. With a newfound determination, Nicole enrolled in a night course at a local art school. The classroom, filled with eager students and the invigorating scent of fresh paint, was a stark contrast to the sterile office environment she'd grown accustomed to. There were moments of self-doubt, the fear of failure a constant companion. But with each hesitant stroke of the brush, a sense of accomplishment bloomed within her. The act of creating, of expressing herself through color and form, was liberating. It wasn't just about the art. It was about rediscovering the woman she was, the woman who existed beyond motherhood. It was about reclaiming a piece of herself that had been lost during the years of sacrifice and responsibility. The journey was slow, filled with late nights and early mornings. Yet, with each completed project, a sense of pride swelled within her. Her artwork, initially hesitant and unsure, began to reflect the newfound confidence blossoming within her. The apartment, once a symbol of solitude, slowly transformed. Sketches adorned the walls, vibrant bursts of color defying the previous sterile monotony. It was a reflection of the woman Nicole was becoming, a woman with passions reignited and wings tentatively taking flight. Chapter 10. A New Dawn. Years danced by, the rhythm of Nicole's life a harmonious blend of work, art, and cherished visits from Joseph. Her apartment, once a haven for two, now buzzed with a quiet vibrancy. The walls, adorned with her artwork, were a testament to her creative journey. Evenings were spent hunched over her drawing board, her fingers dancing with a practiced ease. The once hesitant strokes now flowed with confidence, her style maturing into a unique blend of color and emotion. Local galleries began showcasing her work, the initial thrill of acceptance giving way to a deep sense of satisfaction. Recognition, though unexpected, was a sweet reward for the years of dedication. One crisp autumn evening, as she was leaving her favorite art supply store, a familiar voice called out her name. Her heart skipped a beat as she turned to see David, a fellow artist she had met at a recent workshop. They had struck up an easy conversation that day, their shared passion for art creating an instant connection. Now, a smile played on his lips as he held out a steaming cup of coffee.
"Thought you might need a pick-me-up,"
he said, his eyes twinkling. Nicole accepted the coffee, her cheeks flushing with a warmth that had nothing to do with the beverage. They spent the next hour lost in conversation, discussing upcoming exhibitions and the latest art trends. As they walked along the tree-lined street, a comfortable silence settled between them. The ease of their companionship was unexpected, a gentle melody in the symphony of her life. When they reached her apartment building, David hesitated, a question lingering in his gaze. Nicole, her heart pounding a familiar rhythm, met his eyes with a silent invitation. The evening unfolded organically, filled with laughter and shared dreams. David, kind and supportive, seemed genuinely interested in her work and her journey. He, in turn, shared his own aspirations, his voice filled with a quiet passion. As the night deepened and the city lights twinkled outside the window, a spark of something new ignited within Nicole. It wasn't the fiery passion of her youth, but a warmth that promised comfort and companionship. The gilded cage of her past was a distant memory, replaced by a life she had built with her own hands. Love, when it arrived, wouldn't be a rescue, but a beautiful addition to the tapestry she had woven. Standing on the threshold of her apartment, a new dawn painted the horizon. The future, once uncertain, now held the promise of a love story waiting to be written. A story where her wings, strong and resilient, would carry her towards a future filled with love and shared dreams.